Hey, what the hell? We're back. We're back.
Here we are.
After the long weekend. Summer's over, Ed. Back to school.
Back to school.
Back to school. Everybody go back to school.
Don't be a fool. Go back to school.
How was your long weekend, Ed?
You know, I gotta, you know,
I hear you caught a disease.
well, you know.
And I think that
The severity of this this malady is still to be determined.
Yeah, well, I think I've got it too.
Well, it's just a general
malaise.
A general malaise, apathy. I'm sort of like, who gives a shit, you know?
Damn it!
Like, fuck.
What should I care?
Anyway, so look, look at the action. We got a big day for Golden on Friday.
Oh,
7 million shares. I did speak to Blady.
Yeah.
And he attributes it to the fact that they had several high net worth investor types on the property last week, and this is the first. They dissolved it. He said they put on a 4-course meal, first class food, took them for a helicopter ride. This is up in.
Why weren't we there? How did we not get included on that? We're high net worth individuals.
We have to report this. We have to report on the.
Exactly. We could have.
Mike, if you're listening right now, and I'm sure you are.
We want a helicopter ride.
We want a helicopter ride too.
And a full court banquet.
And just saying, I want to fly that helicopter.
I want to turn as well. We're gonna.
Here, you take the wheel.
Actually, two choppers. We want one each.
Yeah, and we'll have chopper wars.
Chopper wars. Ooh, chopper chicken.
Chopper chicken.
That doesn't sound like.
I think that could be construed to be chopper chicken. When was the last time you played chopper chicken?
When was the last time you had chopper chicken?
Oh, I hope I've had it the last time.
Actually,
Let me say that.
I gotta say that I had a chicken disaster on the weekend.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I bought 2 Mennonite chickens from the market down here. You know the Mennonite chickens, the ones with the little bonnets on, that they speak in tongues and they noof noof noof. And, no, the Mennonite chickens are supposedly grain fed and they have great flavor. Anyways, I bought 2 of them. I marinated them all day on Sunday, put them on the spit. Now my spit, it's on Weber barbecue.
When you say you put on your spit, does that mean you spit on?
No,
you spit on it? Okay. I don't know.
Please.
It's about flavor.
No, jeez.
Hey,
no.
You roast that saliva up there.
Oh, come on.
You get that crackle in the skin.
Now everybody who was there for dinner is going to be going, wait a sec, is Ed saying that James spat on the chicken and was a way to season it? What do you think we are?
You spit on the spat. You spit on the spat. No. You spat on the spit.
None of that, Ed. No.
Okay,
anyways, but what happened was it got dark, and
as it usually does.
As it does. And I lost track of time because I imbibed some cannabinoids. And so it seemed that the chicken had been on for hours, when in fact, I took it off, it had only been on for about 45 minutes. Thus,
so you entered the time machine syndrome.
It was the white buffalo. 18% THC.
Is that about as high as you can get?
No.
Can you go higher?
They've got 35, 36% THC.
Well, what's the highest you can go?
What's the highest you can go?
Yeah, can you go 100%?
Well, I mean, is that like, can you get a product that's 100% THC? You could, but I don't think it would work that well because you'd be absent the CBD, rest of the CBD profile. You wouldn't have the entourage effect. So you might get some intense, in fact, you definitely get an intense chemical high.
Right.
But it wouldn't be a pleasant experience like the warm, fuzzy, inter-body, inter-mind experience that you get from smoking a nice, just a plain old doob.
Yeah. I wonder if they're going to ever contemplate legalizing mushrooms, because they grow naturally, right?
Well, and they have therapeutic benefits. You know that they were testing the use of psilocybin as a way to treat various forms of mental illness back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it was found to be particularly effective for people suffering from schizophrenia and what was the other one? Depression.
Jesus.
Now that's not so hard to believe. I mean, if you've ever eaten mushrooms, what's the first thing that happens? You start laughing like a bloody hyena.
I know. You know what? It's so funny. Everybody's laughing in their own world, and everybody says something. And
last time we ate magic mushrooms, we ended up. I have these big stone elephants in front of my house, but this was back on Bowen Island, and we were so stoned.
The elephants were stoned?
No, we were.
Oh.
And we were rolling the elephants around on the deck because that was hilarious. These 400-pound stone elephants. We just knock them over, and they're rounded, so they'd start rolling around on the deck. Just hilarious. Anyways, it seemed hilarious to us at the time. Maybe I digress.
But yeah.
Let's take a look at some of our cannabis market, shall we?
Well, look at it. There's Canopy Growth going by the tape here, up 679 to 6642. You know, when we put up that chart last week and we showed that that high, it looked like you could say loosely it might have been a double top.
Yeah.
And in fact, it broke through right here, right in this. I'll figure out the computer in a minute, but right back in here again, you can draw that line right across there. Even though it's slightly ascending, but it did look like a double top, and then look, right through here, look at this. And that's the volume. That's got nothing to do with...
Shall we take a look at it on the...
Yeah, I want to see...
Oops, I don't even have it open. Yep, there's you watching me, watching you, watching me. Look at that, 58 visitors.
Here I am. Look at, I'm coming over here now.
He's on his way.
I'm having an out-of-body experience.
You are having an out-of-body experience.
Whoa, you got to watch where you're going here.
You're going to fall over.
You know, if I could fall over. Now I'm over here. Come back here.
Ed, go back to your seat.
Okay.
All right, wait a sec here. Where is the, let's put up the quote. I forgot to open my QuoteStream Pro desktop.
You know what? I was having some issues there, and look at this.
What kind of issues?
Well, I got to learn how to set it up so that I was trying. Did you see Huge today?
Huge.
Huge is up 9 cents to 35 cents.
Are you kidding me?
Only traded 150 million shares, though, so the volume isn't really. Can you imagine?
That's disconcerting. Huge.
That's impressive. That's impressive. Because, you know,
it's
very, you know, it's depressive because I didn't own any.
No, I know. It's totally depressing because I didn't get to own any either.
I think our buddy boy
Anthony
Durkach, fellow Pole.
Yeah.
Fellow Pole.
I think
you know,
shouldn't you just be entitled to some of that from a fellow Polish?
You know what?
You should call him up.
I say, hey, Polski,
Ogorki, where's my
what the hell? Where's the kielbasa?
Ooh, don't ask for that.
No. Look at the JWCA. I saw it earlier.
Miracles happening all over the place here.
I saw the JWC earlier around $1.03.
Hexo's up 15%. 15 cents rather. Okay, I'm going to pull up a chart on Huge just because if we don't talk about Huge in
now what are you putting in here to get this thing?
Oops. That's Huge US.
Yeah, I don't want that. I want Huge Canadian.
Huge Canadian. I'll take Huge whatever I can. No, never mind. Look at that. Look at that.
Where are you? Yeah, there you go.
Look at that. I'll pull it back.
Well, you know, once again, to the viewer, let's just put maybe just.
I'm gonna go advanced chart. Oh, this is charts advanced. Okay.
Yeah, like I wanna
sort it out. Moving average, lower indicator. We want the volume down there too.
See,
why does this keep? I gotta put this set as default here. Draw ellipse. And no overlays. I'm going to put the Bollinger Bands up, Ed, because I've really been enjoying their communication.
Yeah, they tell you stuff, don't they?
Yeah, look. So this thing's trading well outside of the Bollinger Band.
And what's the RSI? Okay, now look at that.
RSI 88.71. Now, how are you going to start a 34-cent stock?
Well,
I mean, you can't buy puts.
So how many shares are in this thing again? 500 million?
1.3 billion.
Only 1.3 billion.
That's it so far.
So
that's just getting started.
Look, so 1.3
billion
times 34 cents. That's a big number. Yeah. That's about 500 billion market cap. Million. Sorry. I stand corrected.
Yeah.
But you know, you have to look at the total value. Now, if you would have done this with that cannabis wheat in the early stages, you would have got your
ass handed to you.
I was going to say your thing shut off. But
yeah,
you got to be careful. This could. We're in a market right now where there is no
rhyme or reason. There's no fundamental catalyst. There is no technical indicator to justify any of this.
It's mania.
It's mania, pure and simple.
Yeah, pure and simple.
Shall we stare at it in silence for a moment?
Well, I just look at that RSI up there.
Here, you want to talk about mania? Let's pull up Tilray. I want to talk about mania. See, look, I don't know what's wrong with your computer. I put in TLRY and it just pops up US. But look at Tilray.
Okay, I'm gonna get it figured out tonight.
$75.
Yeah, and you know what? And you know what? Like we said a couple times, you know, it got outside the band, but you only had this thing is so powerful.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I just look at up 1060 today.
You know, let's not talk about cannabis for a moment. I had a conversation today with Andrew Kiguel. He's the CEO of Hut8 Mining. It's in the cryptocurrency space, and here's a refreshing change from what you thought was happening in the space. Hey, welcome back to Midas Letter Live. My guest this segment is Andrew Kiguel. He is the CEO of Hut8 Mining Corp, trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol HUT. Andrew, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
Andrew, the crypto space has been very volatile, to say the least, but also quiet. And I'm hoping that you can give us some reason to be excited about it.
Sure. So I think what's happened is Bitcoin hit its all-time highs last year in December, and since then it's really been in falling since then, without much of a rally, with the exception really of a couple spots here and there. We're in one of those rallies now. And so I think a lot of what happened in December last year is it was almost this super evangelicalism that was occurring around cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin going to $100,000 and the promises that were being told to people. I think reality has come back and people sort of, some of the air got taken out of the balloon here, which I think is a good thing for the market as a whole and in terms of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that the technical issues that seem to be dominating headlines around various cryptocurrencies are a contributing factor to the reticence in the broader public to uptake cryptocurrencies? Because from my perspective, I get a little bit more nervous each time I hear of another fork in a Bitcoin, for example, or I hear of a dispute among the sort of the guardians of the code in Ethereum, and there's all these emerging sort of conflicts that really tend to undermine my ability, at least personally, to develop confidence that this thing is going to move forward.
Right.
At least not after a very long sort of period of this necessary conflict.
Right. So Hut8, we only focus on Bitcoin. And it's for a lot of the reasons that you just said, is that there is some additional volatility and uncertainty with some of the other altcoins. So we stick to Bitcoin, and the reason that Hut8 was created was precisely for investors like you who say, you know what, I don't want to go out there and create an online wallet and send pictures of my passport out and my employer information and my bank information. Hut8 provides you with that exposure to Bitcoin if you want as part of that for your portfolio, that you can put it into your normal account, buy it through your broker, you can put it into your RSP, your TFSA, you get that exposure. And currently we are about 84% correlated to the price of Bitcoin. So, and going back to my original visit here, all of the fundamentals behind Bitcoin still remain. If anything, we're a lot more optimistic about the direction of where Bitcoin will be going. I think what's happening here is a natural progression. It is going to be cyclical.
Right.
But long term, we're still, highly, highly, highly excited about what we see coming.
Sure. Looking at your share price performance since you were here last, it's, more or less held its value.
Yep.
Even while, Bitcoin has been a lot more volatile. So, what is it about your business model that makes it able to perform so much more absent volatility, even when it's based on something so much more volatile?
So I think the partnership with Bitfury is key. They provide us with the technology and the know-how to run our operations. And so that's a lot of the things that other startup companies in the space have to deal with is a lot of trial and error and trying to figure out how to use the equipment. We've completely cut that out. We have a turnkey solution that we employ with Bitfury. Bitfury is our largest shareholder with 45%. And so they are aligned perfectly with us. We get the latest technology, it arrives on time, and it operates extremely well. The other thing that we've done is, since I saw you last, we were building out a project in Medicine Hat, Alberta. for 48 megawatts. That's a 350% increase in the size of our operations. And we accomplished that in mid-July, 2 months ahead of schedule, and that is now up and running and operating. We've also reported a few quarters so people can say, hey, this is a real company. For the first 6 months of this year, we did $11.5 million of EBITDA. That excludes the 350% increase, which will only be seen in our third quarter because those operations only came in July. So I think we have been a lot more resilient than some of the other people out there. And I think also our capital structure is very clean. We have just under 83 million shares outstanding. There's almost no dilutive instruments. What that is, it's almost like Bitcoin. We keep the stock scarce. We're really minded in terms of doing things that are only accretive and limiting any dilution to investors, because when the price of Bitcoin goes up, we believe that the increase in the value of HUT8 will actually grow higher than the appreciation that you see in Bitcoin.
So there'd be an exponential effect kind of thing.
We hope so. That's the plan.
That's interesting. Then is it safe to say that while this emerging new payment sort of platform and cryptocurrency goes through its growing pains, that really, I mean, in some respects you could make the argument that it's just a matter of time till all these things are sorted out. It's part and parcel of any new disruptive technology that is disintermediating an entire legacy system, which certainly cryptocurrencies led by Bitcoin are. So is that essentially the message you would give to your investors, is like, just be patient, this is going to work?
Yeah, be patient, but the other message is because we are solely focused on Bitcoin, like we're a pure play in Bitcoin, Bitcoin's market cap is larger than that of all the other alternative coins put together. It is the safest, the longest blockchain that's there. And because of its simplicity, it's the one that, no matter who you ask, it's the one that everybody knows will survive. And so again, as an investor, you get that exposure to what is really the gold standard in crypto without having to take the risks of what may or may not happen with all those altcoins.
So then within the Bitcoin sort of universe, we're now at 4 different existing hard forked variations on Bitcoin. Is that correct?
Yep, that sounds right.
And so in terms of, like, for an outsider who's not really well versed in the land of cryptocurrency or the nuances of the technology underlying it, what are the fundamental differences between these, and can they coexist together?
So they can coexist, and there is some different views on this. But essentially, Bitcoin, which is the original one, is still the largest, and the other forks are considered altcoins. The largest one is called Bitcoin Cash, which you may have seen out there. And the main difference is that within Bitcoin, the blocks, which are done every 10 minutes, contain a certain amount of information, and the efficiency that's there needs to be improved.
Okay.
Bitcoin Cash stores everything, so even if you're buying a cup of coffee, but we've seen that Bitcoin Cash and some of the other forks have really just gone nowhere. Bitcoin Cash probably the most, but nonetheless, it's been the original Bitcoin algorithm that has survived and is the one that dominates the market.
Okay, so is it correct, or is it not the best way to think about it? Like, I look at a hard fork and this new range of Bitcoin, and so am I to look at that and say, well, that constitutes dilution in the entire Bitcoin value proposition, or are these actually just a completely new sort of cryptocurrencies in and of themselves?
Completely new. I mean, when you own a Bitcoin and there is a hard fork, you get a piece of that new altcoin, but they're completely new. They have their own rules. So the Bitcoin algorithm is still 21 million Bitcoin to keep it scarce. It's that anti-inflationary pressure. It's still that original one that is the largest, the one that's never been hacked. So that's the one we focus in on. We do not focus on or mine any of the other Bitcoin forks or any of the other altcoins.
Tell me again, how do you arrive at your cost per coin produced?
Sure. So we have a deal. So on our website, you can actually see a breakdown of this if you go to hut8mining.com and look at our presentation. But essentially, we have a fixed cost per month. So our cost base is very predictable. We can break down. So about 75% of our cost is electricity, which is why the transaction, the deal that we have with Medicine Hat, a 10-year deal, is highly attractive, and I've never seen any other company in Canada announce anything like that. We know what our other fixed costs are, our overhead. So essentially that's our cost of mining. We basically just divide that by the number of coins that we mine in a month, a week, or a quarter. So for the last quarter, our cost per Bitcoin in USD was about $2,700 versus a current trading price of about $7,300 today. In Q1, it was a little bit lower, but as the difficulty goes up, our price will also go up. And the average for the first 6 months of this year was about $2,300 US per coin. So that compares very favorably, and it means we have still, even in this environment, we still have very strong margins. That is still not inclusive of the Medicine Hat facility, which just came up in July. So you have to wait to Q3 to see what that impact is, but we have a better energy deal in Medicine Hat, and we've been able to trim costs as well from Q1, Q2. So we're anticipating that we'll be highly competitive with respect to our price of Bitcoin.
Okay, so then I guess the catalyst that is going to sort of launch the share price of HUT8 is likely going to be a significant reversal or a sustained reversal in the price of Bitcoin to the upside?
Yes, and I think also as we let people know, so I know in the US there's all this talk about the ETF, the Exchange Traded Fund for Bitcoin, and you have some of the largest funds in the world that are putting papers in front of the SEC to get approval. We're, in a sense, we are almost like that ETF, given the high correlation we have to Bitcoin. We're now listed in the US, we're exploring other exchanges, so I think we will be able to provide people with that exposure, so that could be a catalyst. Here's something else that I've heard. This is more whispers. This is interesting. But one of the key concerns that the SEC has with approving an ETF is that the Bitcoin purchase by the ETF might be, the person on the other end might be an arms dealer or a drug dealer, or it's very hard to verify and go back, although you can see who did it. You don't know where that money came from, which ironically enough is the exact same thing with US dollars, which are perfectly fine. But one of the solutions that is being proposed is that the ETFs only purchase newly minted coin. So for someone like HUT8, which is really hoarding its Bitcoin, you know, we're sitting on today probably over 2,400 Bitcoin, and we continue to mine and store more on a daily basis. We believe if the SEC comes in and says you have to buy newly minted coins, with HUT8 as a publicly listed North American company that has a whole whack of these newly minted coin, that we'll be able to command a premium if we were to sell those. And the coin that we're mining will be more valuable than that which is just trading in the market.
Wow, fascinating. Andrew, we're going to leave it there for now. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, what do you think? Crypto?
You know what? I must confess, I still don't understand it. You know, I mean, not that I don't think a lot of people understand it, but I certainly don't understand it. I don't know how you can create currencies and the government's not going to step in.
Right. Anyways, welcome back. We have our special guest and friend of the show. I'm going to categorize you as, because you are a friend of the show, Charles.
Well, thank you.
When we can call you on short notice, and here you are. And Charles Taerk is the co-manager of the 9-Point UIT Alternative Health Fund. Charles, welcome back.
Thanks very much.
And you've been doing a little sojourning around the planet, I hear.
Yeah, I had a little holiday during August. And
where'd you go? What'd you do?
Took the family down to Colorado and did a little hiking and biking and
nice.
And golf,
very
river
healthy,
rafting,
very
all kinds of outdoor activities.
And I noticed Colorado, it's legal there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yes, it is.
Were you sampling some product?
We did some due diligence. Yeah.
You did some due diligence.
DD.
Oh, there we go. Interesting. Yeah. So do you feel like being away in the month of August that you missed some action in the market?
I wasn't that far away. There were emails and phone calls, and the first week of the holiday was pretty quiet. That was the early part of August.
Right.
And then the world changed on the 15th.
Is that the date that Canopy sold another whatever to Constellation? Yeah. That was a big date.
Wasn't a change of control yet.
No, they have the opportunity to go up to 55%, but really what it was, I think the shocking part of this was it's $5 billion Canadian. And you know, back in November when originally they said it was $250 million, their original investment, just think about the gain that they've made, that Constellation has made on that original investment. So $250 million got them 9.9%, and they had an option for a period of time to buy another 9.9%. And it really was a shot in the arm for the industry because it was very early, but it told people that this is more than just about domestic recreational. This is more than just domestic medical. There is a global business and a new global industry. And so the first shot was November, and then the market took off. And obviously in August, we got a new shot in the arm. Now the question is, who's next?
Right. So that, based on that $1 million question, who do you think could be next?
Well, there's a short list of companies. If you look at the Canadian LPs, you've got to ask yourself who has the capability to at least demonstrate that they have the wherewithal to have scale. Because we're talking global brands, global businesses, a lot of product, and good management teams. So there's probably 5 or 6 companies that
all billion-dollar companies probably already, right?
Yeah, at this point, yeah, I've lost track, but yeah. So you're looking at Afria, Aurora, CanTrust, Organogram, Kronos for sure, and Tilray. I think those names would be ones that have the financial wherewithal and the production capability to meet the potential due diligence of whether it's the beverage industry or the pharmaceutical industry.
I watched a segment on CNBC. It was back in April after Rob Sands of Constellation Brands was being interviewed on his investment in the cannabis space. And at the time, this is in April, he's gloating about how well their investment in this company has done. And it was interesting to watch because Jim Cramer is trying to elicit some direction on where is there going to be a greater investment down the road, which of course Rob Sands was tight-lipped about. And
very professional.
And watching that, you just couldn't get a read on it. But I look at the way the whole Constellation Canopy tie-up has unfolded, and I juxtapose that to, for example, the Molson Coors Hexo tie-up, and it's just like one is a textbook case of mutual driving catalysts, driving each other's valuations higher and creating a success. Well, the other one is the opposite of that. And so, what's your takeaway? Like, it almost strikes me as like these guys had this in mind. This was planned. They said, we'll buy a piece of you, then you'll drive our stock up. And
well, I don't know that it's as simple as that. I think that there's been a significant amount of regulatory change in the U.S. over the last 6 to 9 months, and just after the original Constellation deal. And I think that Constellation is kind of reading the tea leaves and seeing the regulatory changes, seeing that the Senate, Congress, state senators, more and more people are in favor of legalizing by state and even at the federal level. And so they're putting pieces together to say, look, we need to be ready. Our opinion is Constellation wants to be ready both for global, but also on the potential that cannabis becomes federally legal in the United States. And I lead people to the press release the day that it was announced. It was quite interesting because there was a part of the press release that said, they've got a $5 billion war chest for M&A, R&D, production, and capabilities throughout the world, including the opportunity in the United States. And if you can think about that for a second, how many lawyers were involved in this transaction? Got to be 30, let's just say. But they all looked at that press release, both north of the border and south of the border. And what's interesting is that legal counsel didn't have a problem saying the potential for the US market. So if you just think about the US market for a second, there is no single large player. There are state players. Some companies are in 7 or 8 states. But now you've got the muscle of Constellation Brands that as soon as that light goes off, if it does, then they have the capital to make a significant acquisition and be the player. And so I think that's where the optionality comes. That's why people are looking at Canopy as a mid $60 stock now. Yes, it's trading a little ahead of itself, but it's the go-to name, and so the opportunity is significant.
Sure. How do you, okay, so looking at looking at the performance in the share price of Canopy as a result of STZ tie-up makes sense. You can see that justifies the valuation it has at 32 billion or something.
Right.
Then I look at Tilray.
Yeah.
And Tilray has got an equally monstrous valuation, but without nearly the sort of backfilled elements of the value chain that underpin Canopy's valuation. So you look at that and you say, well, that's got to be pure speculation going into that.
Well, different. Look, when you're putting together a portfolio, your top 10 all represent a different element. They're in the top 10 for slightly different reasons. So with Tilray, it's a very different story. Just went public, listed in the US, and it is operating in 11 countries on 5 continents. So it's new name in Canada, but as a private enterprise, they had set up distribution throughout the world. And so people are looking at Tilray, I think a little bit more on the pharma side. They signed a deal with Novartis. They're the first cannabis company to have a deal with a pharma, and they're going to be stamping the Sandoz logo on their cannabis pill coming up. So that's a major achievement, both from an operational standpoint, clearing due diligence with a pharmaceutical company. But if you think about it, if you've cleared due diligence, from a GMP certification standpoint, think about how easy it would be to sign a contract with a beverage maker, beverage distributor.
Sure.
The level of due diligence required for them would be much lower than pharmaceutical grade. So I look at Tilray as people are kind of putting a valuation on the fact that they're ready because they've already passed the mustard. So it's a matter of valuation and operation and who's going to work with who. Now, again, I don't have any inside information that Diageo or Brown-Forman or Heineken is speaking to anybody. I'm just saying, when you look at the companies, there are some that line up better than others.
Right.
So do you think this is the big value catalyst that is being priced into the market now, is that the market is saying, well, one of these 4 is going to be next?
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. And you're also seeing, I think, a real difference in those few names that are listed on U.S. exchanges.
Sure.
So whether it's Canopy, Cronos, Tilray, who are U.S. listed. So American investors really prefer to be investing on their exchanges rather than coming north to the TSX.
So do you think it also means that some of the smaller issuers are probably not going to get evaluations? In other words, as money goes into the bigger ones, maybe the smaller ones get neglected to some degree?
Yeah, maybe. I think they're going to have to prove themselves a little bit. They're not all going to get ignored, but there's
Sure.
the second tier.
You're going to have some fundamentals there to make it look like, hey, they got lots of cash, or
Correct.
they got reasonably good management.
Right. Or execution strength with respect to extraction, or they're low-cost producers, or they've got a niche. We're growing this market of boutique or craft growers, being able to stand out in that business. But again, it's going to be domestic primarily, where we really need to think about it as Canadians, that we were educated over the last 2 years to think domestic recreational. Now the opportunity is to look at the global business. And when you look at a global industry, how many companies are really able to do that? And so at this point, it's very few.
Like, obviously, Canopy Growth is the kingpin right now with their relationship with Constellation. There's really nobody else there, right?
Nobody.
Right.
And you could even argue that some of the valuations that, like Tilray, but we've also said there's some strong money people behind this Tilray.
Well,
Yes.
that's true. That's the Silicon Valley cannabis play. I think of it as the Silicon Valley play.
So
very smart money behind Tilray.
when big money talks, little money walks.
Yeah. Well, and so the other part of this that's quite interesting for investors is the Canadian names have all run a great deal, but this is a global industry.
Yeah.
And we should be taking a look at companies that are focused outside of Canada as well, because the valuation that some of those companies are getting are ignoring some of the potential value, whether it's a U.S. company or companies focused in Europe or South America. There are businesses that are growing that have significant revenue growth, have earnings, and in some cases, have better financials than what's going on in Canada, but they're getting ignored because they're not the top 4 or 5 names.
And there's got to be big pools of money out there that have missed this, and they're thinking, how do we get involved, right? Because people can't stand not being involved, like, whether they're politicians or, and like certain countries are sitting there like, the hell, this was so obvious in retrospect. But you know how everybody wants to be part of something hot.
Yeah.
Right. So then, talking about companies that are in that top sort of quartile, Kronos Group was a featured subject of a short report from Citron Research by Andrew Luft, and by many accounts, the premise of the go short strategy was not strong. Excuse me, which is reflected in the share price, which has made almost a full recovery now.
Right.
Looks like it's going to go right by that. So,
or double top.
Double top.
You know what?
Well, you always confuse me when you start talking
technical.
Well,
that was a lot of damage done, and as it claws back to those old highs, it starts to lose steam, and people, Anyway, I've been watching this stuff now for 35 years, and 35 years ago I thought I could read charts. Now I realize nobody can read them. But I mean, look, there are things you look for. You look for volume, and the markets can remain illogical longer than you can remain solvent, right?
Right.
You stand in front of this, you can get hurt.
That's right. And so you have to be careful. If you're going to go into a position, you've got to.
Well, just like, people that's probably shorted Kronos on Thursday, now they're thinking, what did I do that?
Yeah.
So
that was there any? Did you read the report?
Yep.
And was there anything there that you would consider as substantial, misrepresentation on Kronos' part?
Well, no. We didn't. We read it with. We were kind of concerned because I think the biggest part that was a head scratcher was with respect to the provincial supply agreements and not disclosing prices or volume or the details of their contracts.
Sure.
But our understanding is that the provinces asked most, if not all, suppliers not to disclose that information. So they were being singled out.
But they were just doing what
they weren't disclosing. They were actually doing what they were told by the regulator.
Right.
And there have been some discrepancies if you go back over time when Hexo Hydropothecary signed their supply agreement with Quebec. They were the only supplier that disclosed information about their contract. The other LPs didn't disclose. They were all asked not to, but somehow the press got some of the terms of that. And you remember with Alberta named many suppliers, but only a few of them announced that there was an allocation up to a certain amount. So it wasn't a hard number. It was the province saying, we could ask of you a certain amount of supply, and it's going to depend on demand. So we were surprised that Citron came in with that, because they've done some really good work in the past and brought some companies down and brought some fraud to light.
Right.
But here was a situation where I don't think that had much merit. So good for Kronos to get in front of it and answer the questions, and I think people on the investment community side realized what's what, and they're now marching back.
Yeah. Charles, we've been talking about all these different companies. Why don't we talk about your fund a bit?
Sure.
Because your fund does very well in the space. So tell us about the fund and how it's been performing.
Sure. So just as a recap for some people that don't know, it's called the 9-Point UIT Alternative Health Fund. We were the first.
Why 9?
Well, 9-Point is the fund sponsor, fund manager. We were running it alone in the first year, starting in March 2017, and we just weren't getting awareness,
Traction
sales,
or-
traction.
Right.
We joined up with 9 Point Partners, which is the former Sprott Asset Management.
Right, that's right,
And
yep.
got that team behind us. And since April, we've really been able to grow our asset base well, and performance continues. So we were the first mutual fund in March of 2017 to be an actively managed fund focused on the cannabis space. We call it alternative health because cannabis fits in our strategy with everything from pharma to new forms of medicines and health. So it's everything from health and wellness, like a Jameson Wellness, to healthcare technologies, to cannabis industry. And by having a wider portfolio allocation, we reduce the volatility that we talk about in the cannabis sector,
Sure.
while still giving people growth.
How many, excuse me, but how many issuers are involved? Are you invested in?
Yeah, the portfolio has about 35 companies.
Okay.
We like to keep it fairly concentrated, and of that, our top 10, which is going to be coming out for the end of August, very soon, 9 of the top 10 are cannabis-related companies, and that is, that changes over time because we are active. We're very proud of our performance, both from a total return standpoint, but also from a volatility standpoint. We are reducing the risk associated with people investing in the cannabis sector, because the volatility, as you know, I was watching before when I came in, the vol is significant, and the swings are really high. So how can you reduce that volatility and keep people invested for the long term? So we do that by being active. Periodically, we'll go to cash if we believe that a name is trading way ahead of itself. We'll take some profit. 2, we do own some privates. 3, I mentioned the portfolio allocation. And then 4, most recently, we started an options strategy in the fund for this sector, because the volatility and liquidity is now conducive.
Like call writing?
Yeah, we'll do covered calls, and
Yeah.
we'll do cash secured puts. The cash secured puts are giving us a great opportunity with the high volatility.
Sure.
And our belief that some of the names might be trading ahead of themselves.
Right.
We're able to look in and leg into a name while earning significant premium while we're waiting for the stock to come to our price. So all told, our 1-year performance is we're up 87%. This is after I said we're trying to reduce the volatility. But what's great about it is the volatility is less than half the volatility of the index.
Sure.
So the marijuana index has a volatility of over 55, and our standard deviation is 22.
Can you disclose how much money's in the fund?
The fund is a little over $30 million now.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what are you guys looking at new names as they come on in the cannabis space now? Yeah,
and not just cannabis. One name that started trading last week that people thought was a cannabis name. It's a CBD name, which is Stanley Brothers. So they're in the hemp business. And again, part of the regulatory change in the U.S. that occurred over the last 6 months, the farm bill that was signed back in June really has provided flexibility for hemp, for industrial hemp. And Stanley Brothers has been around for many years. Charlotte's Web is their retail brand that people are very well aware of. They've got a lot of feature over the years on CNN and CNBC. And so we invested in the new issue, in the IPO.
What's the symbol on that one?
C-Web.
C-Web, okay.
And
I got $50,000 worth of that on the president's list, and I didn't even know it went public. Well, there's how plugged in I am. Oh, wow. 33. Oh, that's the wrong.
No, that's not it.
Yeah.
It came out around 9 or something.
It's on the CSE, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay, that's what the problem is. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, well, that's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
IPO'd at $7, didn't it?
Yeah, it started last week.
Okay.
Right.
Well, so that's great. It's up to $12.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so hemp is also
Where are we?
Well, I don't know where you are, but apparently it's sitting in the
what
account
am I,
somewhere.
chopped liver? Like, I haven't got any calls.
James, you're not sharing. What do you
all these brokers I know, I didn't get any calls.
I didn't get any calls either. In fact, the only way I got into that stock was the guy who's heading up their investor relations strategy, Corey Paolo, was here with Emblem, who he also represents, and he was telling me about the thing, and I said, hey, I would like to have some of that because, you know, I'm a big fan of the Stanley Brothers. There's a few other reasons to be talking to them. And so he said, oh, I'll see what I can do. And he got me $50,000, for which I'm now very grateful.
Yeah. So the CBD oil is, the reason they call it CWeb is after their famous patient whose name is Charlotte.
Right.
Charlotte's Web.
Yeah. Great story. Great story.
And really it speaks to the legitimacy of the medicinal properties of cannabis oil, CBD oil, and you can get CBD oil out of hemp.
Right.
So they're doing really well. I think last year's revenue for Stanley Brothers was $40 million US, and they did $8.5 million in net income. So real business.
Wow.
And hence the attention.
So this thing has the potential to go, you know, like I look at the Tilray number and I'm looking at Charlotte's Web and thinking, well, this could be next.
Yeah.
Huh, fascinating.
You know, one observation I sort of made, like where you went, like say 6 months, 9 months ago when they're all hot, they're all flying, it's gotten a little more selective, hasn't it? Like,
yes.
It's gotten more selective, and some, like we saw Chronos back off sharply while the others are racing ahead.
Right.
And so there's, you know, it just seems to me there's a more discerning market out there.
Yeah, I think last year it was early. I mean, it's been 3 or 4 years, but it was very early, and they all traded in the same type of direction. One company had positive news, they all went. On the other side, one company had bad news, they all fell.
Yeah.
This year, with more liquidity, more market awareness, the companies are now trading based on their own financial results, their own press releases, their own joint ventures.
For instance, one issue, and is Osodial, how do you?
Isodial.
Isodial, yeah.
Isodial, I can never say that
Did that
properly.
thing ever come back to trade?
I don't think it's back yet, but that was $21 after they consolidated it on an equivalent basis, and it's $3.50. You can't even see that move from $3 to $3.50 on a chart because it's sort of.
Yeah.
And I guess there's some issues, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's over time, people start to dig into it and
pay a little more attention, sharpen their pencils.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's still halted there. Interesting. So now there's one of the companies that I'm really looking forward to coming to trade is Canopy Rivers, who is by way of full disclosure, a client of our media production and traffic generation group. So that out of the way, I'm curious as to your opinion on your level of anticipation of the Canopy Rivers, given that it's such a interesting portfolio of products.
Sure, and that's what's interesting about it is it's really an incubator for craft and small cannabis companies. So whether they're doing R&D or they're doing product innovation, doing the science around the plant, that's what Canopy Rivers is devoting themselves to. So there's an opportunity to commercialize those innovations.
Sure.
And so that'll be very exciting.
Yeah. So do you think that having Canopy Rivers as a partner as an investor in your company is in and of itself sort of a value catalyst in the form of a backstop on financing? You know that you're not going to be allowed to run out of money when you've got such a important partner.
I wouldn't say that you won't be allowed to run out of money. There's milestones that these companies have to hit.
Right.
And I think from the Canopy Rivers management standpoint, they get to see who's successful and who's moving the chains. And those companies that are having trouble, they can look to see what kind of attention or assistance they need, but sometimes things don't work out. So I wouldn't say it's an automatic, but I would say that the portfolio approach diversifies Canopy Rivers' risk, right? So they're going to have 10 horses to run with, and they'll be able to sift through and pick the best ones.
Yeah, right. Okay, Charles, we're going to jump to a little segment we did with Neil Chakravarti, who's the Chief Operating Officer and President of WOW Unlimited, which is in a space you might not be familiar with. So here's that conversation now. Hey, welcome back to Midas Letter Live. My guest this segment is Neil Chakravarti. He's the COO and President of WOW Unlimited, trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol WOW. Neil, welcome back.
Thank you, James. Thanks for having me.
Neil, big news. You closed a deal with Bell Media, who is now a 12% shareholder in WOW Unlimited.
Yes.
And that took a long time. Why did it take so long?
Well, we announced this, I believe, June of 2017. So we had been discussing this with Bell for several months prior to that. And then after you announced, obviously, we went into discussions over a series of agreements, which had to be sort of worked through, lawyers, et cetera, involved from both sides. And Bell obviously is a large organization. Luckily for us, they were kind enough to coordinate all the agreements through the various divisions of the organization. And so that took the better part of 3 or 4 months, and then it went to the CRTC, where the CRTC effectively has to give you permission to transfer the license from Bell Media to WOW, which finally came through in July. So about a month and a half, 2 months ago, and then we were at the fag end of it, sort of wrapping it up so that we could close this and announce it today.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What is the attraction for Bell Media to WOW?
Well, that's an interesting question. Best answered by Bell Media, but from what we can understand, they believe that they're excited by what we're doing within the kids and the youth business. Animation, producing great content, or in the leadership we have in creating digital platforms for these audiences. You know, we had a proposition for Bell where we could work together and build some very interesting digital channels and digital content for more a 2019 audience, so to speak. And that's how the discussion started. And I would think that's the primary motivation for them to work with us.
So it's programming.
It's a lot of programming and an understanding of the digital audience, which is probably going to be an important thing for them as more and more of their content gets consumed on mobile devices, etc.
Right. So run us through your business model again, just because it's fascinating to me, and for some of the audience who might not be familiar with what it is you're actually doing.
So our first revenue stream is animation production. So this is where we are either making a show for a large client partner like Mattel. We do a lot of the Barbie animation shows. Or we are creating a show and licensing it to a partner like Netflix, in which case I would mention a show like Castlevania, which is a show we produced and licensed to Netflix. So that's the animation studio. And that revenue model has been around for decades. The second is an advertising revenue business, where the bulk of our revenues come from YouTube advertising. So we have over 3,000 channels of animated content and animation content on YouTube, which has advertising revenues coming, and then, you know, as you may be aware, YouTube gives you a 55-60% revenue share, and then we in turn share some of the revenues with the content creators. So that's the second revenue stream. And then the newer revenue streams coming out of the company are going to be subscription-oriented revenue streams, working with these digital platforms that we're creating. So one example would be us getting into partnership with Bell for some of their offerings to create content and showcase content for a kids audience, and there could be revenues coming out of that. We are working on another platform called Verve, VRV, in the US, where again we have a channel called Cartoon Hangover, you know, which will have multiple revenue streams, whether it's subscription from individual subscribers subscribing to the channel, or production revenues. So it's a mixed bag.
Right.
So I mean, to summarize, there's 3 broad streams. One is the traditional animation production, where you have service revenue and license revenue. There is the YouTube business, which has primarily advertising revenue. And there are all these new platforms where you'll have a mix of subscription, advertising, minimum guarantees in some cases, and production.
Fascinating. The growth of the YouTube channel is, correct me if I'm wrong, has been your biggest sort of center. Is that correct? The
YouTube network has grown very well. When we closed the deal to put WOW together in December of 2016, we had about 450 monthly views. And when we announced second quarter last week, we had over 2.5 billion views.
Wow.
So in 18, 20 months, we've sort of quintupled, if you will.
Yeah, no kidding. That's interesting. So then the revenue that is derived from advertising on YouTube is sufficient to generate a profit and a margin for you? With those kinds of numbers?
Yes. I mean, if you're running a large enough network, the gross dollars are significant, and then you have, obviously, you want to make sure you share revenues with the content creators, because they're the heart and soul of the network. And then, you know, that beyond that is your fixed overhead. And we work with a very lean team, which allows us to cover our fixed overheads reasonably better than some of the other YouTube networks out there.
So would you say that your primary value catalyst in terms of stock price drivers would be the incremental growth of revenue and margin over time?
Yeah, so revenue growth is a big part of our story. And, you know, we have shown during the last couple of quarters that the studio business is self-sufficient. The YouTube business has now become self-sufficient. And the idea is to take the cash flows coming out of the studio and the YouTube business and investing them into the new initiatives. And so you want to look at growth for the new businesses, and from the studio you want to look at both growth and margins coming out.
Fascinating. So then, tell me about some of the brands that you've got under the umbrella, because those are also intriguing, and it's not just like this is startups. There's some established brands.
The two companies we put together, one is the Mainframe Rainmaker Studio in Vancouver, that is 25 years old. It was a public company, and actually we built WoW on the Rainmaker structure. So they've been doing 3D animation and VFX back in the day for the last 25 years. The other company we put together was Frederator, which is a digital animation network on one hand, and a very accomplished animation studio on the other hand. Frederator is also 20 years old. So these are definitely not new companies, as you rightly said. They have great track records in producing fantastic properties over the last couple of decades, working with the Nickelodeons, with the Cartoon Networks of the world. In the last 18 months that we put WoW together, we've had great properties come out from both Rainmaker and Frederator, going to platforms like Netflix and Amazon. I talked about Castlevania coming from Frederator, that went to Netflix. Rainmaker Mainframe put out 3 properties in the summer on Netflix. We had the Barbie Dreamhouse series, which was with Mattel. We had the Spy Kids animated series. Some of you may have seen the Spy Kids live action movie. This was the animated version. And then we had a show called Reboot, which is a reboot of the old reboot that came out in Canada 25 years ago.
Reboot.
A reboot of a reboot, yes.
Okay, well that's great. So it sounds like things are really coming together for you. Now, with this deal done with Bell Media, does that represent some kind of immediate value catalyst?
Well, I mean, this is something we've talked to the market about. Bell obviously is a behemoth within the Canadian landscape. And interestingly, Bell has not just a telephony business, they have a very large internet business, a very large cable and satellite business, and probably the largest media business in the country.
Right.
So we look at this as a fantastic partnership for us, with literally endless possibilities in how we can help Bell by being a partner in delivering great programming to kids and youth in the months and years ahead. So overall, it should, the audience should be able to see new things coming out of this partnership in the upcoming months and years.
Fantastic. Well, good work, Neil. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much, James. Appreciate it.
Well, what do you think, Ed? On WoW Unlimited. Who would have thought you could make money on cartoons? Does that surprise you? You don't want to talk about cartoons.
I don't know. You know what? Look at the movies that come out now that are all animated. Like there's every kinds of them, and you know, little feet and big feet and this and that. There's some crazy stories out there. People love this stuff. I guess it's a form of escapism.
I suppose.
You know,
it is fantasy, after all, and it makes you laugh.
Isn't it real?
Well, I don't know. Maybe if you get written into the cartoon, it's a little real. But
it's like what was the guy? What was the one about the monster? And he was sort of an ugly-looking monster, and he had the funny ears and the
Shrek.
That's it. Cheapers. That was very, very perceptive, James.
Well, you know, I've got a. I don't know. I think there's like I have a direct line into your way of thinking. And clearly, we are starting to move in such similar spheres that we even get the same disease at the same time, whatever that means. Anyways, looking at our indexes here today, It's another banner day in cannabis land. I'm sure nobody needs our help to understand
look
that.
at that.
But,
look at that. Wow.
Once again, we're flirting with 10,000 on the Midas Letter Canadian Large Cap Cannabis Index.
New highs there. New highs, folks.
The small cap index flirting with new highs, 1,100. So think of it that these indices represent a group of companies, a subgrouping of companies in the cannabis space. Midas Letter Canadian Cannabis Index is the 10 companies that trade above $1 billion or $500 million valuation, and there are 10 of them. We'll look at those in a bit. But all these indexes were started as of January 1st, 2015, and except for the large cap, they were all started at 100. So when you look at the index number, it's basically a representation of a multiple of capital investment since January 1st in that group. And so the small cap index is up 11 times capital. Midas Letter Canadian Venture Index, which is all companies listed on the TSX Venture Index.
9.2 times.
9.2 times. But most remarkable of all, and this index continues to astound me, is the CSE index. So these are only companies trading on the CSE.
And would you say the CSE, and again, this isn't a judgment or criticism, but is the CSE considered the most junior of the exchanges in Canada?
Well, it's not considered the most junior. It is the most junior because it's only been around for a small period of time.
So maybe less. You don't want to say less regulation, but
it's not less regulation. It's easier to comply with the rules to qualify as a CSE.
Easier to comply.
It's easier to comply. They make it easy. It's cheaper. It's got all these things. But nonetheless, it is the best performer, 19 times capital in 3 years. So, I mean, let's look at, by default, the index is arranged according to market cap from the top down, but you can click on these little guys over here. The biggest loser in the cannabis space is a group called Empower Clinics. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Aviana Health was a big loser, losing 15%, and then Veritas Pharma has lost 10%. But if we click it again, Koyos Beverage up 65%, 13 cents to 33 cents. But here's the big surprise of the day is FSD Pharma up 33% on the day, 9 cents. Let's take a look. Let's click on that symbol and see if there's actually any news to justify. Oh, no, there's a big story from Ben Smith. But let's just punch in huge here and go to their quote page. No, that was not right. Jesus, Jimmy, get it together here. There it is. This is their quote page, or is this there? Yeah, okay. Q2 results. That was the last press release, August 31st. So, you know, got to hand it to them. Whatever they're doing it well. Well,
that's a deep subject.
It's trading well outside of its Bollinger Band.
Yeah, but you know what? It had a hard time. The first day was the highest it's been, and we've gone through that now. So, you know, if anything.
Yeah.
Look at this Chiron's. And
Chiron's also rocking it over here.
Yeah. Rocking in the free world.
Looks like it's got a lot of steam left in it, eh? Touched a high of a duck 32.
Duck 32.
Duck 32. That's 3/4 of a goose.
3/4 of a goose.
Anyways, that was lame. Let's take a look at our golden. How's it doing today? Just a sidestep. Oh, it's 49.
Actually, that's pretty good action.
Yeah.
You know, right there. I mean, it had a monster move. Look at the volume.
Yeah, back here.
Yeah.
August 13, 14. Well, that's the day the news hit. So we're anticipating more drill results next week, right?
You know.
No, I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
I don't know. You know, but I can only say that the people were on the property visit obviously felt compelled to own more.
That's interesting. Going back to the cannabis indexes here, let's take a look at the constituents of the large cap index. And again, organized by market cap, by default, but if we click on the percent change, we can see who the only loser on the day so far is Auxly Cannabis. Where's their billion-dollar investor partner? I guess that's the big question. But the big winner here today.
How do you know Auxly is oh yeah, because it's at the bottom there. I see it. Yeah.
T-God, the green organic Dutchman.
Yeah, look at that thing fly.
Up 24%, $1.37 to 7.03. On what was the cause?
Is that a new high? Can we put up a chart?
We sure can. No, it's not a new high. Because Wednesday, June 6th, it closed at
8 and change.
Yeah.
It's already
touched a high of 828.
You know, it just seemed like the other day that this thing was just started trading. But
well, so here's the news today that arguably is behind this, is that Aurora announced that they were going to extend their right to acquire another 8% of the company by another 6 weeks. But Terry makes a very clear statement of support here, which I think is kind of the emotional tickler that behind this whole thing. Is Terry Booth, CEO of Aurora, added, "We are pleased with the progress made at T-God to date as reflected by the significant appreciation of our investment. We are now working with the T-God team on finalizing the details of our go-forward partnership, and we will continue to support them as they execute on their strategy." A very definitive and clear statement of support for T-God, who was briefly under a bit of a cloud in that they had the difficulties with the permitting in the city of Hamilton, and
yeah, they sort of started building without getting approval,
and the health issues of their founding CEO Rob Anderson, but seems to be moving in the right direction now. That's a very strong statement from T-God. Now, or Aurora rather. Now, one of the things I wanted to touch on today is because there's been one absent sort of participant in this major move today, upward in all stocks, and this is Aurora. Aurora hasn't really participated today only. Now, do you think that's because the statement suggesting that they're going to extend their right to acquire a further 8% of T-God constitutes more money out the door?
Didn't they just close a line of credit here for $200 million?
$200 million expandable to $250
What would 8%? What would an 8% involvement in T-God cost them?
Well, I don't know exactly what the terms are, but I would assume.
And the question I have is, did they raise? And again, this is just throwing it out there. Did they do a debt deal because they felt that was cheaper than doing more equity because they wanted to keep dilution down?
Well, but obviously that's a primary.
But then this debt carries with it, you know,
interest, which can be interesting.
Could be very interesting.
Well, I mean, it gives Aurora a lot of flexibility to have an extra 250 sitting there in the back burner.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of anticipation around Aurora right now because all eyes are on Aurora, expecting them to come up with the move that puts them back on
top.
Well, no, back on Canopy's heels. So right now the gap is widened so far.
And Afria, I think, might have supplanted them as number 2. Is that possible?
Well, if we look at our indexes, that's the great thing about these. Oh, the index is now up over 10,000. Ding, 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 ding,
wow.
ding, ding. First time in the history of cannabis, the Midas Letter Canadian Cannabis Index is over 10,000. Stop the press, Ed. Crack open a bottle of champagne.
The Kraken.
Or let's twist one up. But looking at the index page, no, Aurora is still in number 2 position. Oops, hold on here, I went too far. Let's go back one. Let's pull down the drop downs here. Aurora is still $8.5 billion market cap to, well, Canopy is still showing a $15 billion market cap, but that's not very inclusive.
Aurora
and Afria is at a $4.3 billion market
okay,
cap.
so
big lead between Afria and Aurora.
Aurora is, and maybe that's why, you know, people are saying, hey, you know what? You know, Aurora's already got a major market cap. Maybe let's
Yeah, I wonder what Tilray's market cap is right now. Let's take a look at that. That should make for some good. TLRY. Tilray's market cap.
Look at this.
$7 billion. So if
they're coming on to.
This is USD.
Okay.
So technically,
it's already
the number 2 by market cap in the world
is Tilray.
Could be Tilray. Could be Tilray. Because what's 7.9 billion add 30 points for Canadian peso?
So 7.9 times 30 is 2.4. That's over 10 billion.
Yeah.
Canadian.
Jeez. So this is interesting. We got Tilray is actually now on the heels of Canopy, and Aurora's on the heels of Tilray. Boy, oh boy. I wonder if the market caught that. Oh, Tilray's number 2. We don't mean knowing the guys down in Silicon Valley. No, we're talking profoundly. Knowing the guys down in Silicon Valley, their aim is to get it to number 1.
Yeah, this thing's on a runaway. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if this thing. I don't even want to throw numbers up because it's pointless. But you know, I would have never expected this. So why couldn't you expect something even crazier? Maybe it's going to be up $20 tomorrow. Who knows?
Yeah, I know. Who does know? I don't know. Do you know? Nobody knows.
The shadow knows.
The shadow knows.
The shadow knows.
But let's go back to our indexes here. Let's see who's the high performer on the small cap index, because that's always fun to see. All right, listed by default to market cap. Look at Namaste Technologies, up 21% today. Whoa, what happened there?
Boy, these are moves. I mean, I got to tell you.
Huge up 33%, now in the small cap realm. Actually, huge must be...
What's huge at? Where do you see? Oh, yeah, there it is. Up 9 cents, 33. Wow.
Yeah, whoa, it's in the small cap. Yeah, it's in the small cap list now. It's heading for the large cap.
Is it?
Yeah. Well,
so let's just punch up the, okay, market cap.
If it goes another...
448 million.
Yeah.
It's interesting, you know, and not to, but you know, if you're not paying attention, some of these market caps just floor you, or they like, for instance, we were talking to Charles, and he said, you know, it's getting up there to about 100 million. And, you know, you got to, you know, not to suggest everybody should know all the market caps, but clearly 500 million, billion.
I know.
It's mind-boggling.
WMD, Weed MD up 7%. Like everything is on fire here.
Well, let's look at High Hampton.
Bioceutical up 3.9%. Canna Royalty up 4%. 5.6. You sure you want to look at High Hampton?
Well, we know quite a few people in that.
Well, I'm just afraid to look, because if they're not participating in the upside, then they're participating in the downside. You know,
there's probably a good possibility, a good chance that the next move will be up, because we've seen so many of these things.
Do you own stock in High Hampton?
No.
Yeah, because that one's really been lagging.
It's a laggard.
It's a laggard.
Not a logger, but a laggard.
Yeah. Well.
What about SICK?
SICK, you want to jump back over to mining?
Yeah, let's see what that looks like.
I really don't want to look at.
You know, tomorrow night we're going to go to a presentation by the company.
Ready? Here it comes. That's a bleeder. We got ourselves a bleeder. He's dying and flip-flopping in the street like a fish out of water with 3 hooks in his gills.
And what about ABN?
ABN. Oh, you're glutton for punishment today, Edward. As I can tell you that the mining sector is essentially taking it on the chin, because everybody's liquidating mining and trying to get into Canopy,
or
into cannabis. You know what's funny though? Probably just as the herd stampedes over to cannabis, it'll be time for that big correction in the sky. Going to come down and make poppers of them all. As the old bull said, let's walk down and talk to them all. Let's walk down and...
Son, let's just walk down.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't want to run down. We're going to walk down.
Yeah, we're going to walk down.
Anyways, so Albin Resources sucking hind tit too today, thanks to the cannabis space being on fire. That's going to be my call of the day. But you know, this whole thing is it's toxic. The cannabis space is growing toxic to me because it's like, look at that, like that is just not sustainable. 10,000.
The shorts are getting their proverbial dupa handed to them.
Yeah.
What's this here? Will Tilray Inc. get to 100? Okay, look at that. What was that? Will Tilray get to $100 a share before the inevitable capital raise? Wow.
Lots of big promotion in here.
Look at this, up 11.81. It's 18%. Is the market closed?
The market is now closed. Not bad.
Let's take a look at the most actives on the venture today and biggest traders.
Actives.
Well, I think we know what the biggest trader on the
look at market movers. That's what you're telling me here. I can help with that. Market movers. Here we go. Namaste Technologies volume 11.8 million shares.
Jeez.
Up 214.
Wow.
Yeah.
214.
Look at Eve. I bought 100,000 shares at 28 cents just a week ago of this thing, and it's closed at 40 today. 5.2 million shares traded. Boy, I wish I'd bought more of that.
Yeah, but if it went down, you would have wished you didn't buy any.
Yeah, that's right.
So look at this, James E. Wagner. You know, it wasn't that long ago. It was sitting there at 65 cents, and now it's 96 cents. That's 50%.
Yeah, I almost bought it.
Yeah.
I think I will buy it, actually. Organogram, another one of our old clients, is doing really well. 660 a share. Up modestly on the day, but nice trading day. 1.7 million shares traded. But it's all about cannabis here. Here's old Patient Home Monitoring. Boy, remember that one? Patient Home Monitoring.
Yeah, what was the ticker on that one?
PHM. I will never forget it.
That really took everybody for a ride.
Yeah, $2.
What's that a new all-time high for Canopy Growth?
Canopy Growth? Oh, yeah, that would be a new all-time high for Canopy Growth. We're going to pull that one up over here in the charts. Let's look at an advanced chart on that one. So there's weed.
That's look at this. Holy.
At least it's trading inside the Bollinger Band.
Yeah, and it went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, basically 6 days. It closed outside the band. Then we had 4 days of correction.
Yeah.
And then a big pop today. There's power in this sector. There's power.
Yeah.
I'm glad. When I was younger, I would have been shorting this stuff because thinking that, and I know better. Never piss into a hurricane.
That's
I'm just saying.
Wise.
I'm just saying.
That's why.
If you feel the wind at your back, go ahead. But if it's in your face, turn around.
That's
just saying.
That's a good one, Ed.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at Canopy Trust, or rather, Canopy Trust. CanTrust is one of the ones that I think is still one of the best kept secrets.
Yeah. They're the big into the medical marijuana space, aren't they?
Yeah, it's up 50% in the last little bit here. But
well, when was their party? What day was that?
Party. Here's the party. No, the party was back here, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't a Friday.
Was it Tuesday? Tuesday, August 21st. There it was.
So it's put up a good 25% since then, maybe 30%.
Yeah.
Jeepers creepers.
Boy. It's a thing of beauty.
And another maybe another point to make to our viewers, you know, when you're thinking of stepping into something that's moving like a rocket ship, and you see a day like 4 days ago with this issuer where the whole candle is outside the band, maybe wait a day, and then it pulls back a bit, gives you a little better entry point. You know, try to have a little bit of patience.
You make your money when you're shopping, don't you?
You make your money buying when you buy.
Guess what time it is, Ed?
4:20. Is it?
You know what that means? It's time for our product feature of the week. You know what the product feature of the week is?
No.
Me either. We don't have one.
Okay.
You know why?
Why?
Because we're not going to have it with any regularity until after October 17th. But one of the things that we're scheduling for October 17th is a joint rolling contest here. And so all the guests who are coming on the show are going to have to demonstrate their skills by actually rolling a joint. By hand, not even any grinder, no machines. It's got to be by hand.
How much time have you got?
How long does it take to twist a dude properly if you got any
Well, let's
skills at
say
all?
you
About 2
got
minutes.
to use your little fingers to grind it into little pieces.
Well, but also you have to pick out little bits of stock.
Stock?
Yeah.
Like
Because you don't want
common
any
stock?
common stock, preferred stock. You got to separate the wheat from the chaff, and yeah, that's good.
Are you surprised at Organigram today only being up a penny?
You know, I'm not, because as is classic with all manias, and this has clearly moved into the phase of mania, they only focus on a few names. They focus on the biggest, splashiest.
Right.
And poor Organigram out there on the East Coast is you know, people come back to Organigram and say, oh yeah, maybe I should buy this one too. But it's never at the top of their list because they're just they're just a little bit outside of the main matrix.
Sure. So if we can, you know, reiterate what Charles said, there's basically, you'd look to your Afrias, Auroras, Chronos, Tilray. I think we mentioned 5 or 6. Is there a couple others there that have
Charlotte's Web
and MedMen? I mean MedMen it was up over $1 today, I think.
Yeah, you know, there's one that's remarkable to me because, you know, MedMen spent $2.7 million on investor relations. It's like if I had spent $2.7 million on investor relations and this is the result.
Did you get your cut of that?
No, I did. We do not have MedMen as a client.
Okay.
If we did have MedMen as a client, they'd have a different chart, Ed. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but our clients' charts are all in a state of what we call incline. Well, yeah, there's a couple that are trading a little flattish, but no.
What's the volume on Golden today?
Boy, back to the gold.
I'm just trying to, keep it live, keep it raw, jump around.
1.74 million today.
Nice action.
Yeah.
The RSI is sold off a bit here. Nothing too.
No, this is. I hate to say it, but full disclosure, I own this at an average price of 33 cents. So it sounds a bit disingenuous to say I still think it's a good entry level here. But honestly, if the results that I'm hearing about
potentially
are potentially as good as they sound like they might be, and this is in fact a district area discovery play, then
you know what, we may want
at this price and you'll think, why did I not buy it? It
might be worthwhile. And this is just a suggestion, but a friend of mine, Chris Walroth over on at PI Financial as a broker there, he was on that trip. Wonder if he'd want to give us his firsthand.
Call him up.
What do you think?
Call him up.
When?
Now.
Well, I want to give him a little bit of notice.
Well, you just did. Isn't he watching?
I don't know. I don't think.
Let's go check on the chats. Would he be on Facebook or on YouTube?
I don't know. I don't know. I just
look over here. All right.
He and Blaney go way back. They were golf buddies, and I think sometimes it's a good day. Although
one of our guests, Jonathan Hamill, is pointing out that Easy popped big after our recent interview, James. Another roughly 10% today. So see, we're starting to have the great effect. Garrett Turner likes the idea of our rolling contest. This is going to be good. We'll get a CEO in here. You know, but here's the thing. If you get a CEO in here who can roll a mean, fast, proper doob, do you want to buy that stock or do you want to sell it?
Now, are we? What kind of joint are we trying to roll? Are we trying to roll a blunt or a spliff?
You know, those terms are after my era. When
Yeah, I know.
we were all, it was like twist a doobie, roll a joint. Those are two things. Spliff, when I was growing up, was all about, if you were talking spliff, you were talking hash or hash oil, not cannabis. And that's how you differentiated between a weed doobie and a spliff, which was made from weed or hash. Now, these days, blunt is anything that's got cannabis in it, whether it's wax shatter, whatever, butter. Buy it, ha ha ha. Max PT27 says, buy it if the CEO knows how to roll a good tube. I'm with you there. JWCA. Yeah, everybody was a steal down at 60. That's what we were saying. Freedom Unleashed points out the fact that we were saying JWCA is a steal at 60 cents 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah. It resisted going further down, and once, you know, it tests a level and holds, then the point of least resistance turns back up.
Yeah.
Not a turn up, back up.
Turn up.
Turns up.
Turn up. Back up the back up the turn up.
Look at MedMen.
Yeah. Look at MedMen. Well,
Anyway, great to be back.
Yeah.
Looking forward to tomorrow, as usual.
We got Mike Gorenstein from Kronos Group joining us on Thursday.
Really?
Yeah, that's going to be good.
You know, what was I going to say? What was that sign in that bar? Free beer tomorrow.
Free beer tomorrow. No, that's not a good sign.
It's not a good. That doesn't work, does it?
No. That's just exercise in frustration. Here's one of our readers on Facebook proposes, guys, let's talk about why ACB is not running higher with Kronos, Tilray, Canopy, Afria. Still dilution or waiting for September 25th earnings?
The market cap is already is way up there. Like, I mean, this is maybe it isn't number 2. Maybe Tilray is now number 2. But Tilray can be massaged a little easier because of the structure, can it not?
Technically, Tilray's, I mean, it's hard to say, because if you were to say Tilray's number 2, it's a U.S. company.
And they're going to raise money. They're all going to have to raise money. Yeah.
Well, obviously, Tilray's basically, I'm sure, got the how high can it go before we put an end to this insanity. But I'll bet you they're running around right now trying to put $1 billion together.
You know, I bet they are.
Yeah, I'll bet you that's the next big news with Tilray, is that we raised north of $1 billion. And I'll bet you it's all their Silicon Valley brethren writing checks left, right, and center to support their Silicon Valley horse in the race.
If this Tilray opens up really big tomorrow, I'd probably be a little cautious and stepping in.
Yeah.
You know, it's really moving up like what's changed in a day?
Okay.
Through the band. Band on the run.
Band on the run.
You got a very good voice.
Oh, apparently not. Look what I'm doing for a living. So, Ed.
Okay.
What do we got? What else is happening this week? What do we got to be excited about in the cannabis space? What's going to happen this week to change our lives?
Well, you know, they say your life can never change. It's just everything around you changes, but your essence, that's
all you got?
Well, that never changes.
What you get is what you got. Well, I would beg to differ. What if you get flattened by a cement truck while you're crossing the street?
Well, then you go back into the energy pool.
Well, only if you die. What happens if you go into a coma and you're paralyzed from the waist down?
Hey, look at.
Ever watch Better in the Bell, the diver in the Bellfly?
look at our buddy there who just passed away, Hawking. He overcame tragic odds, or overwhelming odds, and led a very productive life. It's pretty remarkable.
True.
No, I know there's, you look around and sometimes it's easy to say, it could be better, but it could be so much worse, right?
It could be worse. It can always be worse.
It just doesn't seem like it's fair, does it? Sometimes, right? When you see certain people and you look at their lot in life and they were born with an affliction or it's sad sometimes.
It kind of makes me wonder what they did in a previous life to deserve it.
Oh, that's pretty deep. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's probably risking a little bit of karmic repercussion.
Yeah, I think
we should probably wrap it there.
Let's wrap it.
You know what?
You want to wrap it?
I want to thank you all for watching again today. Jennifer Mason-Hawes, Darren Thayer, Josh Hustings, Ed Legenda, Donnie Greco. Hey, Donnie, we're going to have you on the show.
Robbie Saltzman was watching.
Robbie Saltzman. Hey, Rob, how's it going? Mario Drolet, bonjour.
Hey, Mario.
Bonjour. Jonathan Salami, hello. Carl Boyd is here. Carl Boyd's going to be here tomorrow. They're going to have, guess who's going to be on there?
Carl, the partner to Brandon.
Carl and Brandon from Follow the Money Investment Group is going to be here tomorrow.
Those guys are good.
They've got Chris Perry coming on their show tomorrow.
Chris is a knowledgeable fellow.
He's a knowledgeable fellow. Anyways, feel free to sign up, subscribe, do all that stuff. Remember, we are on a roll, and we are in a cannabis market. And man, when is it going to end?
We are farmers.
We are the champions.
Okay.
We are the champions. Thank you. Bye.
That's it. It's a wrap. Good night, everyone.